Hello, everyone. How's it going? People? Welcome to this weekly Day One Careers show with myself, Evgeny, and possibly Gigi if she joins later on. If you guys have been following our YouTube channel, you know us from our YouTube channel. You know myself, you know Gigi, and yeah, we're doing this weekly show to answer any questions that you have about behavioral interviews with Amazon. So while everyone's piling in, I can see that there is all three of you. So hello, great to see you guys. I think folks who are based in the UK might not be joining today because it's half term in the UK today, so kids are not at school. But all of you come and pile in, folks. Let me take you through some background to what this is and some rules of the house, how we're going to run the show, and then we're going to get straight to your questions. So first things first, I am the co-founder of Day One Careers. So Gigi and I both run the business. We are both former Amazonians. We used to work at Amazon. We were hiring managers, interviewers. We actually had normal jobs, not just interviewing candidates. So we were both in marketing. And Gigi, on top of everything, also was a bar raiser, which is really cool because she brings a very unique insight into our business and into coaching clients. So at some point in time, we both started our own businesses because we figured that, interestingly enough, in Gigi's case, so she started seeing that a lot of candidates seem to be coming with very strange habits, very strange interview habits, which they all shared. So they were doing things that weren't really great in interviews, but they were doing the same stuff. And so she started asking them, like, where exactly they picked up that advice. And then they started referring her to YouTube videos of various bogus Amazon interview coaches that were loading their minds with bad advice. And so first she started the Amazon Interview Whiz YouTube channel by herself while she was still working at Amazon, because she really thought that she needs to clear the air and really guide people away from bad advice. And then when she left Amazon, she converted this into her full-time job. So that's her story. With me, so I ended up in this thing slightly differently. So what I started seeing is that I was interviewing plenty of great candidates when it comes to functional fit to roles, but I noticed that their interview skills weren't necessarily up to scratch. So rather than necessarily rejecting them at the end of phone screen one, what I started doing is giving them a little bit of coaching on interview skills and then progressing them to phone screen two and just seeing what happens. And anecdotally, right, but not very shockingly, I ended up reconfirming my belief in that if you suck at some skills and you're given coaching and you're receptive to coaching, actually you will get better. And that's exactly what started happening. So then I started coaching first, and then I created courses, and then I created this brand, Day One Careers. And then at some point in time, both Gigi and I merged our businesses together under Day One Careers, because one of our candidates, believe it or not, was working with both of us. And she said to us that we should work together. And so we decided to merge. Anyway, so how we're going to run this show, folks. So I'm going to answer all your questions about behavioral interviews at Amazon. If you have something very, very generic, like I've got an interview in a few days, do you have any tips? Then just refer back to our YouTube channel. This is I believe, the best collection of general behavioral interview tips for Amazon that you will find online. So you probably want to make your question a little bit more specific to your situation. Then when it comes to very specific functional questions, like I have an interview with Amazon for a pre-construction manager of fulfillment centers or something like that, I just won't be able to answer that because there are literally thousands of job families at Amazon, and we don't have expertise in functional questions on all of them. So keep things to behavioral interviews, something specific to your personal situation, and I think we're going to have a great time and I'll be able to answer all your questions. So the way to ask questions is go to the chat box in this YouTube live and just start typing away. Type your question in. I'm going to bring it on the screen, and then hopefully I will be able to respond. If your question is a long one, then convert it into something that has multiple parts. So, for example, once you start typing, you will see that I think there's a character limit. I don't remember what it is, but there's definitely a character limit there. So just split it like as a Twitter thread, like first part, second part, and I will make sure that I'm going to pick up all of the parts of your question, and I'm going to bring it up and hopefully answer it. So get those questions in. Get those questions in, folks. I'm here for I'm here until 7 p.m. GMT. And I will keep answering questions as long as the questions are coming. But if there are no questions, then I'm going to cut the show short. So I'm happy either way. So let's let's get this started. So, hi Evgeny. Thanks for your time. I wonder how I should handle results that are estimated or projected for an unreleased product at the time of the internship. And what about projects from grad school that partner with a real client but don't have a real world impact? Okay, so let's start with this one. So when you have results that are estimated or projected, that's something that you can definitely you can use it. You can mention reasonable projections of results. You can use the other thing that you can use is some interim results. You can also use things like approvals from senior people, for example. And this is where I think for a lot of folks who are in consulting, this is something that is useful, especially if you deliver the results, like you deliver a blue book, but then your project doesn't extend over the time to actually be able to implement the results. And that these are the different ways that you can go around the fact that, if you don't have any results, you can also, for example, if you exited the project or exit the company, you can always get back in touch with some of your colleagues and ask how those things are doing. But ultimately, yeah, any reasonable projections and estimations you can use. Just be very clear with the interviewer that on that particular occasion, right now, it's too early. That's something that this project hasn't been launched yet. But a reasonable estimate and the projection that has been aligned or accepted by the organization. So what's always useful is that if you can claim that something has been approved or accepted. For example, let's take a production example. Say you're launching a new brand or a new product. At some point in time, as you're going through the stage gate process, which is typical for all Fortune 500s, you need to make a projection. Based on that projection, the company needs to purchase raw materials. So commit resources, commit financial resources, commit organizational resources to purchase materials and so your forecast gets loaded into the system. So if you can claim some of those things, essentially some form of organizational acceptance of your estimates, then it's better. Nothing is as good as actual results. I'm not going to lie to you, but hopefully you now know there are a couple of ways around it. And then your question is about the projects from grad school that partner with a real client but don't have a real world impact. Well, it's the same. So first things first, projects with from grad school, they're absolutely fine to use, and that's totally fine. I think I think the lack of results is something that you just need to handle with the tips that I gave you before. Again, just for the avoidance of any doubt, there is no silver bullet that will immediately that you will be able to use in the absence of real results. Real results trump everything else. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're struggling to find enough stories with real results, you can use projections that are reasonable or that have been accepted by the organization. that is better than nothing. Okay, let's keep going. So I have 8 years experience, and my loop is coming up as program manager. Can I be hired as senior program manager? So I think we need to separate your question into two sub questions. Apologies, I'm gonna cough sometimes because I think I'm catching a cold. So first things first, is sub question number one: is 8 years enough or sufficient for a senior program manager? So a senior program manager being an L6 role. So there used to be a time when tenure or time in the industry was used very consistently across job descriptions at Amazon. You can just see it from all job descriptions, and progressively they're doing away, especially in some geographies, with just using the references to years of experience, as opposed to using the descriptions of some specific experiences or expertise that you need to come with. So if I were to use those kind of old-ish principles of forming job descriptions, then I would say that 8 to 10 years, this is where you're talking about L6. That being said, that is anecdotal. It's nothing that is formal, and there's literally nothing whatsoever that's stopping a hiring manager from putting together a job description that says 8+ years, so the minimum is 8 as opposed to 10 for an L6 role. Where now, whether that's actually going to go down well in terms of you coming with, let's say, 8 years of experience and interviewing for a senior program manager role and then getting into Amazon, that depends on whether you raise the bar versus everyone else is doing that job, including the bar raiser effectively being aligned with the hiring manager that they need to bring you in. So it is possible with that year with those many years of experience to compete for L6 roles. How successful you're going to be, it really depends, right? So, but there's nothing stopping a hiring manager from creating a job spec that for an L6 role that has 8+ years of experience as opposed to 10. The second sub question is, can you interview for an L5 role, which is the program manager, and then get hired in the end as a senior program manager? In theory, yes. In theory, yes. But that basically means that they need to conclude that you overqualified during that interview. Yeah, that has nothing to do with your years of experience. Based on the evidence that you share in that interview, they will have to conclude that you are overqualified, that you have that you, with your experience, that you would raise the bar at an L6 as opposed to at an L5 that they're interviewing you on. They need to be able to rescope the role for an L6, and then the bar raiser in there needs to be at least at an L6 level, because the bar raiser needs to be at least at the level of the role for which they're bar raising the candidate. So if, for example, in that loop you have a bar raiser who's not an L6, they wouldn't be able to do that. Also, some roles are level flexible, some are not. So some roles can be rescoped and upgraded in terms of level, some cannot. And that's something that we don't know. So this role, maybe that hiring manager in their team only has space for that role to be an L5 and not an L6, in which case there's no way that you would be hired as an L6. So I think, generally speaking, if you want a strategy that doesn't depend on edge cases, but is a strategy that is more dependable, what I would say is, don't try to interview for, let's say, an L6 or an L5, but then hope that they will upgrade your offer to the next level, because that is incredibly rare. It's not impossible, and in theory, it's been done before, but it's incredibly rare. So always go for roles and levels that are commensurate to your experience, and do your research in terms of, is L5 or L6 or L7 senior enough for you or not. There's plenty of materials online. There's plenty of folks, plenty of Amazonians online. Talk to Amazonians. Find them on LinkedIn. Amazonians are very chatty. They're happy to talk about their workplace. So there's plenty of information. Okay, next one. Is it okay to pause and take a look at your notes during a behavioral interview round? Yes. Yes, it is. No problem. In fact, you can, even before you start answering a question, you can say, hey, thanks for the question. It's a great question. I'm just going to take a moment and consult my notes. So it's totally fine. Next one. Should I ask the same questions to the interview panel, with the exception of the hiring manager, who I would have more specific questions to? It's literally up to you. Just ask things that you're interested in. Have some genuine questions. I mean, take this time to find out more about Amazon and see if you actually want to work there. I know it's a bit counterintuitive. I know it goes against the whole thrust of being in a job interview and actually trying to convince them that they want to hire you. And then it feels oftentimes, right? It feels that this whole idea of answering, of asking questions at the end of the interview, it's almost like, isn't this some sort of, trick situation where I need to say something manipulative to get that job? No, the thing is, the questions that you ask at the end of the interview, your answers to those, they don't count towards your assessment. I think it only starts being a problem if you're somehow if you don't have any questions, or if your questions are completely just copied off the internet, in which case I guess the element that will be questionable is your motivation to join. Like, are you taking this serious enough? So my advice is just be genuine, ask them and ask them about stuff that you really want to know about, and don't try to almost like find the right things to ask. What I personally did is I actually asked all of them exactly the same number of questions, and yes, I did make an exception for the hiring manager. For the rest of them, I did what you're proposing to do. But the reason why I did that was not due to anything manipulative. What I wanted to do is get multiple perspectives on some questions that were very important to me, so that I could get multiple inputs. Let's keep going. So I have my first interview tomorrow for the AE role at Amazon. What should I be prepared to answer? What advice, tips, suggestions can you provide for interview one? So with regards to the functional stuff of the role, so AE, I'm assuming it's the account exec. So I can't really guide you much, but in terms of the non-functional elements, so be prepared to talk about why you want to work at Amazon. Be prepared to walk them through your resume, and be prepared to explain to them how your experience prepared you to do well in the role that you are applying to. Like when they ask you, tell me about yourself, or it's a team A response. tell me about yourself, and be prepared to answer some functional questions related to sales. Again, I'm assuming account exec is sales, and those questions are impossible to predict, because phone screens are very flexible, in the sense that there's not a lot of rigid guidance that hiring managers must follow when they conduct these phone screen one interviews. They can throw literally whatever they want at you, but in most cases it just tends to be, why do you want to work at Amazon? Tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, maybe some follow-up questions, and then one or two leadership principles questions. Okay, let's keep going. So I got an offer but declined in the last 3 months, and the recruiter mentioned I'll have a mini loop going forward, and it will be of the same rig as before, or will my previous offer has any weight during your mini loop? In theory, it shouldn't. In theory, they should just make up their mind right there and then. In practice, it might. It really depends. But in theory, no, it shouldn't. They should make a decision based on their interviews with you right there and then. To be honest, it can't hurt that you that you had an offer because you're pre-cleared for Amazon. So I think in practical terms, there's a good chance that it's going to be a positive factor. But formally speaking, no, it should be. They should make a decision just based on what you share in that mini loop. Okay. Let's keep going. So, do I need to prep by Amazon and self-intro for each interview is again for the loop? So during the loop, they may ask you, why do you want to work at Amazon? If they do, it's a warm-up. It doesn't count towards your assessment. It did count during your phone screen. And once you got yourself to the loop, it doesn't count anymore. It's just a warm-up. Just to have something to talk about, to get comfortable having the conversation. That's pretty much it. So I wouldn't worry about it. And don't spend any time, and when you're preparing for your loop, don't spend any time repolishing that why Amazon response. Will there be Q&A time to ask questions to each interviewer in the loop? There should be, and in most cases there will be. Sometimes you will overrun in such a way that there won't be any time. In which case, what might happen sometimes is that the interviewer will make a note to the next interviewer to say that, I didn't give the candidate any time to ask questions. Can you see if you can fit in some more questions? So something like that. But yeah, in most cases, there should be. Some say it's less intense. We're talking about the mini loop. Or will I have a sort of casual conversations with 3 people for a team fit? A mini loop is a mini loop. A mini loop is a loop. It shouldn't be any less intense. It might be. Here's the thing. There's a difference between what it should be and how it is in practice. In practice, yes, oftentimes in practice, maybe the line of questioning isn't as intense. But in terms of the bar that you're meant to raise, it's I guess the bar and the filter that is imposed, that's meant to be imposed to your responses, should be exactly the same. In practice, mini loops, they feel slightly differently. But I guess the question that you need to ask yourself is like, what difference would it make for you? So let's say it's easier, or let's say it's less intense. So are you going to prepare less for a mini loop? I would not recommend that, because you might have interviewers in there that are going to take the formal line, and they're going to take it as seriously as a full loop. What are you going to do then? So I would say treat it as the same loop, same intensity, same bar, and then if it feels easier in any shape and form, just take it as a bonus. And then again, look, you've done it. You know what loops are like. You've interviewed before, so you should. The muscle memory should kick in. You should be reasonably comfortable. How can someone refer me to Amazon? So you need some Amazonian friends or colleagues, so someone who knows you. And then you need to send them the job that you're interested in applying to. Don't apply yourself. Ask them to refer you. And you need to send them your CV, your resume. They will need to make the application internally. They need to submit your resume internally. And only then that referral will work. Also, there are 2 types of referrals at Amazon. There's the referral where they vouch for you, and then there's the referral where essentially they're saying, yeah, it's just someone I know from social media. So they really need to vouch for you. And also, I highly recommend that after they apply you for that role, they also write an email to the hiring manager explaining why you would be great for that role. I would say that all successful referrals that I received in my inbox when I was a hiring manager were the vouching referrals, the strong referrals, and there was always a follow-up from the person who was referring with a little introduction with the resume, the candidate's resume attached. And it's absolutely fine. It's not. It's perfectly. It's expected, and it's actually quite helpful. So ask your friends to do that. Okay, next one. I am wondering, what do you think are the chances of getting questions about the 2 new leadership principles? Yes, success and scale, bring broad responsibility, and strive to be Earth's best employer for a senior PM role. Oh gosh, look, in practice, we haven't had a single candidate who we worked with who was interviewed on either of these leadership principles, regardless of level. Intuitively, it feels like these LPs, by the way, at Day One Careers, we actually don't think that these are LPs at all. I think these are values. These aren't really competencies. We believe, although we have no reason, like we don't have any insight information or data on this, but it feels like some of those things that a company would do if they had a serious conversation with another company like BlackRock, who was underwriting their debt, and they said to them, you need to make a stronger commitment to ESG or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I have no idea. But anyway, so we haven't seen a single candidate who was actually interviewed on those. In fact, what we are seeing, and again, this is anecdotal, but we do have a pretty sizable base of folks who work with us. We're seeing recruiters advising candidates that they will not be interviewed on these 2 newly added quote unquote leadership principles. We're also it's the same thing as it used to be with frugality. So presumably everyone's meant to excel at frugality, and then in reality, when you're writing a job description, unless you're writing it for someone in procurement or in some finance roles that have to do with optimizations, frugality almost never makes it to the loop. So yeah, it doesn't seem likely that for an L6 they will interview you on those. Let's keep going. So I had an interview. I have an interview within 2 hours for an L4 SD role. Good luck. In terms of behavioral, what is the aspect that recruiters and bar are looking for during the interview? Like, the way this works is when the hiring manager posts a job, they're meant to have thought about what leadership principles are important or critical for someone in this role to demonstrate in order to do well. And those are the leadership principles that the hiring manager will then assign together with the recruiter and the bar raiser. And they will be assigned to all the interviewers who will interview you. And that's what they want to hear compelling stories where you demonstrated behaviors that map to those leadership principles. If you have the interview within the next 2 hours, I will struggle to add any more value. I think maybe just scan the job description and see what soft skills, let's put it this way, see what soft skills are kind of oozing through, what jumps out at you. And those are the things that will be important. But good luck. I hope you smash it. So with DEI and environmental issues falling out of fashion in big tech, I'm trying to avoid wasting time preparing for stories for LPs that are unlikely to be used. Look, I'm reading the same news as you do, but the thing is, I'm struggling to comment here, and the reason why I'm struggling to comment here is because even when these leadership principles were added to Amazon's list of leadership principles, we just did not see a single candidate who was interviewed on those. I'm not saying that they weren't interviewing on those, but all we can see with the candidates that come and work with us, and that includes folks. I mean, we did help place two VPs. quite a few directors, and loads of L4s, 5s, and 6s. It's just not anything that Amazon ever interviewed them on, and the recruiters were advising them against it. So and that was before the events that you're referring to. So yeah, I mean, scan the job description, see if it mentions any of those at all, if there's any such language in there at all. If there isn't, to be honest, I would deprioritize those. I did not get selected at Amazon Prime, saying that I lack functional expertise, but I have basic parameters. The whole experience was exhausting and tiresome. What learning experience should I have? I don't. I can't. I really can't understand what the question is here. Harsh. Try to maybe rephrase it. I do understand you're frustrated about the fact that you didn't get the outcome that you needed, and probably, if I'm reading between the lines, but please correct me, that Amazon probably did not give you much feedback about what is it that you lacked. But I don't really know. I think, I mean, at the very basic level, just look at the job description, and look at all of the requirements, both the basic and the preferred, and see what they are. I mean, you could probably, if you're very, very passionate about it, you could probably ping the hiring manager on LinkedIn and just ask them to provide some feedback. But to be honest, that's what I would do. But I don't know what learning experience you should have, because I don't know what the job description is. I don't know what qualifications you have, and what the feedback was. And I'm afraid it's not anything that I would be able to help you with in the context of a session like this. But I do feel for you. It's frustrating when you don't get the job that you really wanted to. Is it better to split the loop into 2 days? As far as Amazon is concerned, it's the same to them. So see how you feel. It's up to you. The benefit of doing it in 1 day is just you're done and dusted, and you don't have to think about it again, right? Because interviews are stressful. So if you just want to get it done and dusted, do it in 1 day. If on the other hand you want, for example, to interview, then take a break. Maybe tick off some of the stories that you've used. If you're building a story bank, or if you're using our products for the story bank, then maybe split it into two days. But it really is up to you. If you think about, maybe, have you experienced any such kind of long panel interview style days before? And if you did, maybe ask yourself, did you enjoy that sort of experience? Did you run out of energy, or were you fully there? If it's the other thing is, personally, I found these long days to be tiring if the format of the interview changes all the time. But if your loop is entirely behavioral, and it's literally the same format of questions, then at some point in time, after maybe the first or the second interview, you're getting in the zone so much that you just keep plowing through. And I found it easier personally. But yeah, it's very individual. But to Amazon, they don't care. Okay, next one. I'm interviewing for product management role, but to respond to LP questions, if my answers refer to the time when I was not a product manager, is that okay? Yeah, that's totally fine. So the nuance there is that obviously, if you share a story where you demonstrate behaviors that really shine and answer to the leadership principles, then, and at the same time, you mention some functional skills that relate to product management, they're not going to say no, naturally. But if you have a trade-off between either sharing a story where you're functionally strong or sharing a story where you're behaviorally strong and your behaviors really match to the question that they're asking you in the behavioral interview. Choose the story where you're stronger on the behavioral front, and even if that story, in terms of the function that you were doing in that job, was not product management. Let's keep going. I got an interview for a graduate AM, I'm assuming account manager. What are the leadership principles I should focus more on? I have no idea, Niraj. You should scan the job description. So go to our YouTube channel, locate the videos where we are talking about dissecting the job description and finding leadership principles that are encoded in that job description, and try to figure out which ones those are. And if you're struggling, then you can purchase a service that Gigi does, where she looks at that job description and tries to extract those leadership principles. But there isn't a general set of LPs that graduates should be focused on. It depends on the hiring manager, and it depends on it depends on which ones are critical. So the response here is that from Vishal, it says, in my opinion, all LPs. Well, that's what they would say to you. They would say that all of them are important, but that's not the reality. In reality, the hiring manager would have thought about which ones are critical, and they would have baked those into the job description, and they would have assigned those to the interviewers. Right, let's keep going. Should I mention the LPs while telling stories? No, don't mention the LPs. Just answer the question. It's annoying to the interviewers. STAR method. Should I mention the situation, task, action, and result, or just answer subtly without mentioning? I would say our guidance is we're flexible, and most interviewers are flexible. If those subheadings, situation, task, action, result, are helpful to you, then verbalize those and use them as crutches, which for a lot of candidates, they use those as kind of crutches. But if you can string together a narrative without using those subheadings, then don't use them. It's really up to you, but it's fine if you want to use them to help you structure the narrative better. Right. The next one is, along with my university studies, I also managed a small-scale travel business. Oh, cool. Really cool, Shankar. Should I include any story from that experience of mine for the LP questions if I find it appropriate? If you find it appropriate, yeah, that's fine. Do it. If you find it appropriate, then that's great. So the other day I was coaching someone, just to give you an example, who is applying for something to do with social media, like for a social media team, a role in the social media team, one of the social media teams at Amazon. They have many. And the candidate already had their own social media business. They were a social media influencer and had their own social media business. And there's plenty. There are some stories. There are definitely some stories that the candidate had that were highly relevant that they could tell. The thing is, they need to be relevant from a behavioral standpoint. So to the question that you're answering, right? Because functionally, if I guess when you're being interviewed on Amazon's core competencies, which are the 16 leadership principles, if you want to use a story that happened during you running that small scale travel business, you just need to be confident that it is indeed relevant and appropriate, and then it really showcases your skills. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't go into hobbies. I wouldn't go into like extracurriculars or anything like that. Most of your stories need to come from the core role that you were doing, or the core roles that you were doing that kind of comprise the bulk of your career. But if you have something that's really, really relevant from that experience, I don't see why you shouldn't use it. Another one. While this isn't a completely relevant question to ask here, I bought a lifetime subscription in 2022, but I don't have access to it. How do I get it back? You still have access to it. Just write to us and we'll sort you out. Nothing's lost. Like Sean Carter, manage a rental business on the side. There's side hustlers in this group. Well done, people. Well done. Really good. So I definitely have strong stories that relate to customer obsession. How many stories can be related to this versus core PM role I'm interviewing for? I mean, the bulk of your stories, like 99%, should be related to the PM stuff. Because your rental business, if it's a small rental business that is just you and a handful of other people, the impact will be quite subdued. So I would say really prioritize your core roles as opposed to your side gig. But if something is very relevant, then use it, but don't over egg. So when I say if there's something relevant, use it as a matter of exception. So prioritize stories from your core role. Okay, so we have a multi-parter, so I'm just going to read the first part here first, and then once you type up the second part, I'm going to find it as well. Okay, part 1. I've been moved to the loop stage with an interview date set for the same role in a different team with a different recruiter because the role was filled. I see openings that I prefer for the same role and have now applied for some in different regions, potentially different levels. What are my next steps? Oh gosh. Right, let me try to understand what happened here. So you moved to the loop stage, interview date set for the same role, for this role, in a different team with a different recruiter. Okay, because the previous role was filled. But then you see openings that you prefer for that role, and you've now applied for that role. What are my next best steps? The original role was filled. You got referred to another role. Okay. So there's nothing to stop you from applying and interviewing for multiple roles at Amazon. Nothing at all. Just be transparent with your recruiters that that's what you're doing, but otherwise, it's all fair game. You may get the other role, you may not get the other role. So stepping back in general, transfers at Amazon, as long as they are at the same level, they're a lot easier than things like promotions. So for example, if let's say the role that you really, really, really wanted got filled, but you're being referred to a different role and they're happy to interview you. While this role may not be the one that you really aspire for, but you don't mind doing it. And it might give you an entry into Amazon. And so you might do this role for a few years and then move. So that's possible. That's possible. Moves at the same level at Amazon are relatively straightforward. You find yourself a different role. You interview with the hiring manager. The bar is lower. You don't have to raise the bar. You just have to meet the bar. But because most roles are at the same level as you are right now at the time of interviewing, if functionally you fit, then you do a slightly reduced loop compared to externally interviewing, and then you move. So I guess the next best steps are, it really depends. If you want to be sitting externally while hunting the role that you want, or if you want to start clocking that Amazon experience and maybe doing the role that not the one that you are superbly aspiring to do, but maybe you can do, maybe you see yourself doing this role for maybe a few years and then move to something that you like. Um, Personally, and this is just me, right? So it's not advice to you. You really need to dig deep and see what you want. Personally, I always so if we're not talking about level, and this is where for me there's a line. Sometimes I see candidates who are very qualified, and for example, they would typically um, there's going to be enough experience there to compete for, let's say, an L7, but they're being looped for an L6, and they come to us and they work with us, and they tell us, they ask us, can we just get in, sneak in as an L6, and then quickly get promoted, or can we interview for an L6 role and be given an L7 right there in an interview, right? And these are challenging. These are challenging. So these are the ones that are very, very difficult. Promotions aren't difficult. It's just they take time. They're not guaranteed. And so if you believe that you are an L7, potentially an L7 or an L6 or whatever at Amazon, but you have an opportunity at a level below, and you are thinking of this role potentially being a very short and quick stepping stone into the level that you believe you're qualified for, then think again. Because while it will be or might be a stepping stone into the next level role, it will take you some time to get to the next level role. And the promotions aren't guaranteed. At the same time, if it's not about level for you, but if it is a a type of role, then it becomes easier, because you can go in, you can do 1 year or a year and a half in one role. You can move to a different role, and then you've spent some time understanding Amazon's culture, figuring out how the whole thing works, and then you move to a role that you really like. So that's also possible. I joined Amazon in a role that I had only a vague idea from the job description of what that role actually would be doing, especially since half of the job description listed skills that I didn't have. And then actually it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do inside Amazon, just by looking at what kinds of roles those are, what kinds of projects people are doing, and what roles, what do you need to be, just to kind of get a little inside reconnaissance. And I used that role to do that. I guess where for me the red line is if the role I'm interviewing for right now, and I think I have a good chance of getting it, it might not be my ideal role, but I can see myself doing a really good job at it and really plowing through with it for a year and a half, 2 years, then I would definitely do it. But if you're almost like, if your entry ticket to Amazon is a role that you're looking at and you're like, ugh, I mean, if they paid me $1 million, I would do it, but otherwise I wouldn't. Then maybe don't do it. Because if you find yourself in a role that you're really demotivated to do, you can't do it, that 1.5 years will be an eternity. Your performance will most likely suffer because you don't have motivation to do that role. And then your exit from Amazon will be very quick. So only join with that scenario if the role that you think will be a placeholder for you is something that you can see yourself being quite motivated to do for a year and a half. This is a little from Shankar. Not to brag, but I'm also running a startup, Dr. Stop. Great. So should I consider it a professional experience? I'm good at coding, but now how should I use my entrepreneurial experience for better results? And to be honest, if your entrepreneurial experience, this is where you really need to dig deep into what sort of experience that is. If right now you're having both sides, if both types of work are contributing in the same way to kind of they're consuming the same level of hours. If they have, or actually, let me backtrack on that. So I would say use your startup experience to highlight behaviors that you would struggle to find in your current role. So you're interviewing for an SD role, I understand. And depending on what leadership principles are baked into your job description, maybe some of them are better served with your entrepreneurial experience. I think just use the filter on relevance, where if and again, I wouldn't be able to know for sure because I don't know your precise experience and what stories you can tell with your core experience and what stories you can't tell. But let's imagine, for example, that the question is on invent and simplify. And if they're asking you what's the most innovative thing you've ever done, they usually ask more than one question. You can mention one as your own startup and another one at work. Where I have to caution everyone is that do not over rely on side gigs. Use your core role, unless your side gig is really your core role, if that makes any sense. So it would be it would raise alarm bells if you've got a corporate career of sorts, but then most of your examples are coming from your startup. The other thing to note is that in a lot of cases, in order for you to demonstrate behaviors that map to leadership principles, there needs to be someone else. There need to be outside entities like colleagues, like some cross-functional work, working in a team. And if you're running a startup that's effectively solo, or if your team is very small, you'll struggle to demonstrate those skills. So be very sensible and reasonable, and be biased towards whatever you consider to be your core role. All right, folks. So I think we've got all the questions down. Don't go anywhere because I need to give you outstanding freebies, so that you can continue your Amazon preparation journey. So let me take this off and let me show you a little banner. So I've made this banner as simple as I could. Day One Careers / free stuff. So folks, we put our hearts and souls and hundreds of hours in what we do, and we also give away very, very, very good freebies in addition to this show. So the first one is, if you go to this URL, you're going to get a sample course on customer obsession, where we teach you everything you need to know about customer obsession, specific behaviors that the interviewers are likely looking for, and we're going to give you a demo in how to tell a behavioral story about customer obsession with specific pinpointing, fully deconstructed as to where we did what in terms of how we structured that response. And this is a taster course for you to give you a flavor of what our full prep suite, which is called the Amazon Interview Success System, what that prep suite is like. That is freebie number one. Freebie number two, as soon as you get that course, you will automatically get a free membership into our community. And inside our community is great. We always have candidates who are preparing. I think we've got something like over 5,000 members right now. We stopped counting. And we give you the basic access level for free. And it's actually quite useful because you can connect with other people. And you also can find interview buddies. We have a special channel in there. And you can link up and practice with other people who are prepping right now. I cannot overestimate I cannot overemphasize the importance of linking up with other people and actually practicing. The other thing that's cool about that free community is that in one of the channels, we have our AI bot operating, and our AI bot is who is trained on all of our YouTube content. The AI bot called Andy, for completely random reason, that AI bot is answering all your questions about behavioral interviews at Amazon. So you're just going to get an AI bot that's trained on all of this free content that we're putting out there in there, and it's it's yours for free. And then lastly, the other thing that you're going to find in this URL is our Amazon interview prep tool pack. It's a PDF, it's a downloadable PDF. And in that PDF, we're giving you plausible Amazon interview questions. Now, why do we call them plausible? They're plausible because they are our invention based on years of interviewing and coaching people for Amazon interviews. There is, of course, the official Amazon interview bank. We don't have it. And even if we had it, we wouldn't share it because it's confidential to Amazon. However, nothing is stopping Amazonians from inventing questions to interview you on during behavioral interviews. I used to do it. Gigi used to do it. But we have constructed a PDF that gives you a plausible list of questions which you can use to give yourself a flavor of what sort of questions they're going to be asking. And the minute you download this this PDF, you can stop searching for Amazon interview questions online, because this PDF will protect you from stumbling upon absolute nonsense from people who are just posting stuff online, who have never worked at Amazon, who have no idea what kind of questions Amazon will ask. And so we are trying to protect you from this, because it will be a disaster if you end up preparing to answer questions that Amazon will never, ever, ever, ever ask, like the failure questions. Tell me about a time when you failed. It's a legend. It's on many different websites, but Amazon will never ask you this question. So get the Amazon interview prep tool pack. And last request for you folks, give this video a like, because when you like this video, it's served to 10 more people. And it means that 10 more people will be able to access our expertise. And trust me, we routinely deal with people who come to us who are absolutely bombing their interviews because they took preparation and advice from someone who's not qualified to give it. So help us make sure that this free content gets as many eyeballs on it as possible. And that's pretty much it, folks. Thanks very much for being here. If you're interviewing this week, best of luck. Come join our community, get the free stuff, link up with other candidates, and best of luck. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.